Minzy wants to be a fly on the wall. Let me in. Let me in.
Yes.
Let me in. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Outback Gamehouse, Lord of the Rings, Heroes of Middle-earth. This week we've got not many topics to cover, but just one major topic, and that's glyphs. So I think there's a fair bit to cover, considering it's a brand new progression system that's coming into Lord of the Rings. So we'll obviously lean more into Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes and I guess the lessons learnt from that game. There's probably some things we can learn from MSF, but in general, I think we're going to be looking at Star Wars and how it's worked over there. But before we get into glyphs, I guess one new character that's coming into the game is Rehka, which will be part of the Black Beast team. She's got a interesting kit in terms of self-sacrifice, self-damage.
Yeah, definitely.
All three of her abilities are basic, and her two specials all inflict self-damage, drain health from herself, and then attacks enemies based on the amount of health that's drained from her. So I think that's the first in terms of in this game of a character that uses that kind of method. Obviously not going to be great as a solo character.
Yeah, definitely.
she's just gonna go and cause self-harm and eventually just kill herself, right?
Yeah.
Anyone from MSF, it's kind of like Swarm, where he just bleeds himself and then ends up dying if you don't have Dr. Octopus with him. And that's kind of the same here. Unfortunately, you can pretty much have viability is only with Black Beast.
Yeah.
Because obviously with his mechanics, he'll keep her alive. And I think that's what they're going with. But outside of that, I don't see any real strategy there where you can use her in a mixed match hybrid team. Obviously you can, but you'll need to have Black Beast with her or else she'll end up dying pretty quickly.
Pretty much, yeah. I do like that it's her drain is based on current health and not max health, because max health would be even worse.
Yeah, I mean, if she's doing 20% of max health, that's 5 turns and she's kaput.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be bad.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested to see how the other Dolgada Charu, her kit's going to be like, whether she's got some sort of self-sacrifice or maybe she's going to be some sort of healer.
Well, that's what I was thinking, but healing kind of would make the team worse in a way, because with Black Beast, it's not like they can ever truly die.
True, but maybe a tank, because I mean, with Black Beast, right? You want to take him out first.
Yeah.
So ideally, you need someone to kind of support him. So if it's not a healer, then I'd imagine it would need someone to tank. Yeah. I mean, technically they've classed him as a tank, but he doesn't really taunt or provoke.
Yeah. I mean,
he's a tank because he keeps the other two alive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In which case, I would think they'd need someone, providing some sort of heals.
I was thinking maybe I think defensive would be good on him. Like if Charu provides defensive and like, I guess it's the same thing, but block or death proof as well, or unbreakable, that'd be really good.
Yeah.
So maybe not like a tank, but more of a support character, I guess.
Yeah. Like I said, he just needs some way of keeping alive, right?
Yeah.
So Rehka's come out and she's just pure deeps, and which is fine.
What would be cool is if Charu provided stamina to Black Beast so he was able to heal more. That'd be cool.
Yes. Yeah. No, stamina regen would be just as useful, I think. Yeah. If he can get his ult off a lot more, his second special. That's another possibility. Yeah, you're right. It is an interesting team. I've been using Black Beast while we're on Black Beast. I've been using Black Beast. Obviously, has to be plug and play because he's the only character from that new team that's out at the moment.
Yeah,
I don't mind him. He's bugged currently with
no, that's
when,
right.
when he does the drain. when he does the drain on the team, he spreads like debuffs and other unintended stuff, which is a bit hilarious. But aside from that, I've actually kind of enjoyed him. I've been using him in my arena team for offense, not for defense. I honestly haven't tried putting him on defense and seeing if he's been able to hold, or the team at least has been able to hold. But on attack, I've been using him as the 5th with Ron and Kids. And it's pretty good, actually, when I'm doing a mirror match with a full Rivendell team or Rivendell, the usual suspects like Rivendell Ironhide, Rivendell Brute.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot more Rivendell Naramiris.
Yeah, Rivendell Naramiris, Rivendell Fellowships. So they're the usual kind of suspects that I see in our arena shard. And yeah, Black Beast is very useful as long as the focus is it's there. And I've taken mine up to gear tier 8 at the moment. As long as he can land that heal block on Elrond, it's so good because he just stops Elrond from healing up.
Yeah.
You just remove this is my strat, remove the provokes from Eladin, and they just go ham at Elrond, and Elrond doesn't heal himself passively on each of his turns. And then once Elrond's done, it's like with any
the team falls apart.
Yeah, it's like with any Rivendell fighters. Once Elrond's out of the picture, you just put it on auto and bank.
Pretty much.
So that heal block really comes useful against Rivendell in that sense.
I'm surprised it lands because they do have the resistance buff from Elrond.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. As long as it lands, so if it doesn't land, it's still doable, and that's because you've got the mass AoE drain as well and stuff like that. And we spoke about in the last podcast where Swag was with us, and we were kind of theory crafting, and it's kind of that where if you've got like a bunch of them at low health, and then he does the drain, you kind of eliminate, like, and I've done it a couple of times, not too often. Once obviously I get his stars up to 6 and 7, it'll be much greater. Plus, mine's only, I believe it's 3s and 4s in abilities, so he's not hitting as hard as he could at max ability levels as well. But there have been like a couple of instances where I've taken out Elrahir and Eladin at the same time, and I'm just like, sweet, and even if he does revive, he's not reviving both of them back either.
For sure.
So usually the focus resistance is a struggle when I'm up against 7-star Elrons. That can be an issue, and it usually is. But even if it doesn't land, I've still been having pretty decent success with Black Beast there.
That's interesting. So that makes me think that he's going to be a challenge store character.
Yeah?
I think he will be.
Even though we just had Tabeb. Well, I guess there's a bunch of characters between Tabeb and then when Black Beast will become farmable, right?
Yeah. I think either challenge store or, depending on when it comes out, probably the new multi-squad PvP store, if that gets a store, which I imagine it will. Or maybe not, because, the arena store. Yeah.
I am curious if there is a store coming for multi-squad.
Well, that's the thing. In Galaxy of Heroes, there's 2 different stores because they're still 2 separate game modes. I always forget about that.
In regard to
in regards to that, it's going to be replacing Arena, not an addition to Arena.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens there. But yeah, I think he will go somewhere difficult to farm.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised with that.
Yeah.
Where we'll have to see, I guess. I guess we'll go into the main topic for this podcast, and that's Glyphs. So we knew Glyphs was coming, and we've always expected it to be launching in December, whilst we did have a blog post that came out a few days ago. They didn't actually specify a date for release of the new system. But I think in previous kind of discussions, the AMA and stuff like that, they kind of indicated end of the year, roughly December.
I believe HoME said by the within a month, so sometime within December.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
trying to find where she said that actually.
I think it's pretty unanimous that it is going to be in 2023. So prior to this latest blog post, we didn't really have too much information in terms of glyphs. Very, very high level informations up until obviously the recent blog post, which kind of went into detail with the whole slots and the major and minor glyph sets, and also the primary stats, secondary stats, how they level, and spells as well, which I don't think was mentioned up until this latest blog post.
Yeah.
So coming from MSF, we have our ISO 8 system. It's very different. With ISO 8, you have particular sets. You have your primary stats and secondary stats, but then you equip them and then you choose a particular set that you want, like a set bonus. So this is different in the sense that there's different, in this case, glyphs, each with different symbols, and then you can choose to have either, so you have 6 slots. You can only have one major. So to get a major set, you need 4 of the same, I believe, and then you get the major set.
Yep.
So which means you can only ever slot one major set because there's only 6 slots available, so you can have one major set. And major set and accompany that with a minor set, or you could do 3 minor sets, because the minor sets you only need 2 of the same glyph symbols to activate that minor set.
Yeah.
So I believe, and this is where you're going to come in, because I believe this is very similar in a way to more of how the system is with mods in Star Wars Galaxy of Hero.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same in Galaxy of Heroes, where you can have like 4 and 2 or 3 2s, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And the secondary stats, that's the main part of mods, the RNG on the secondary stats, trying to get the speed and other important stats rather than the less valuable ones.
Yeah, so I guess with that, so when you get a particular glyph, for instance, they can come, my understanding of where they can come with one of the various primary or secondary stats?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So like you may get a glyph with a speed stat bonus, or it could be, health, damage, armor, focus, resistance.
Yeah. So the way it works in Galaxy of Heroes is there's 1 primary stat and then there's 4 secondary stats. And after you reveal the 4 secondary stats, which you do by leveling up the glyph, once you level it up enough to reveal all the secondary stats, additional levels on that glyph will roll into a stat. So say I revealed a +3 on a secondary stat to speed, and that revealed all the other stats, and I have 1 additional roll. I can, when I level up the glyph to roll again, it will go into, if we use speed, it could become now a 6 speed mod with 2 rolls in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so they mention primary stats 1 per slot, and then you have slot 1 to 6, health, damage, armor.
Yeah.
And then, so is that, so my understanding reading that was, so when you look at the glyphs kind of diagram, where you've got the character's weapon and you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 slots around the character.
Yes. Yeah. So
my understanding was, if you put a glyph in the first slot, you will get a health increase, because that first slot is a health primary stat increase.
Yeah. So the first 3, the first 3 primary stats will always be health, damage, and armor.
Yeah. So on those 3 slots above the weapon, you have health, damage, armor, and then the bottom 3 is a random roll, a random one, randomized between health, damage, armor, focus, resistance.
Yeah.
So that's, and is that how it is in Star Wars Galaxy of Hero? Because that's kind of akin to MSF in terms of each of the ISO 8 slots has a particular stat bonus based on which slot it is.
Yeah. Yeah. There's more primary stats that it can roll in Galaxy of Heroes, but yes, works the same.
Right. Okay. Now moving on to then secondary stats. So they say secondary stats up to 4 types per glyphs. So you can roll, is that?
Yeah, so as I was saying, like when you level up a glyph, I forgot the exact. So at level 1, it will only have the primary stat showing. And then level 2, it will show 1 secondary stat, level 3, 2 secondary stats, and so on.
Yeah.
And then at level 6, it will increase the primary stat a bit more. And additional levels after that, so 7, 8, 9, 10, that will roll into a secondary stat. So it will basically increase that secondary stat. And you can, this is where the RNG comes in, where if, say, you get speed, like a high speed roll, you want to keep rolling into speed. Because you can roll into a secondary stat more than once.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where the RNG elements come into play.
And that's why it's so like speed heavy in Star Wars, because you just keep rolling and rolling into speed and pretty much just discard the low speed ones.
Yeah.
When you get to a certain point, like obviously when at the beginning, you just want speed on everything. You're going to take whatever you can get. But eventually over the years, you'll kind of raise the floor a bit. So you only need things with like +5 speed, then +6 speed eventually, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, that's... So there's 10 levels.
That is different. In Star Wars, there's 15.
So upgrading glyphs to level 5 requires gold.
Yes.
So this is the other resource item that I don't believe they mentioned up until this point. So from level 6 and above, so 6 to 10, we need a new resource item called spells, in addition to gold. So it's gold only to one from 1 to 5, and then you need spells and gold. Yeah. God, that gold crunch, eh?
Yeah. So this is the thing. In Star Wars, you have so much gold, but like at least solid 80% of it just goes into mods.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think now I'm at a stage where I'm starting to collect gold, and that's because I'm running out of other things. Yeah. So like when I get a new character like Black Beast, for instance, I was only able to take him to level 45 on day 1 because I ran out of XP. I was only able to take him to 3s and 4s because I ran out of purples. Yeah. So at both of those, crossroads, I'm not spending gold because I'm running out of other things. Yeah. So I'm at a stage where my gold is starting to collect. I think I'm at over 1 million.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I've been like that for a good few weeks now, where I'm just always out of purples and XP.
And I'm not going down because I just can't spend it because I'm running out of other things. Yeah. So maybe, like you say, this game will get to a stage similar to Star Wars of Galaxy of Hero where gold isn't an issue because there's other bottlenecks.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I we'll have to see how much gold is involved in this. It'll be interesting to see. So spells, I think they're predominantly selling spells via the guild raid as rewards, but then you can also get them in the supplies shop and obviously with money.
Yeah. So spells are another thing, which is, it's the same as Galaxy of Heroes, but it's also different. Spells essentially just allow you to do those rolling into stats again. In Star Wars, this is called slices. But as I said, in Star Wars, it's a bit more complicated where you need to get the mod up to a certain tier and then you can start doing slicing. That's just not in this.
Right, okay.
Yeah. And the reason why it was like that is because Star Wars, when the game was like a lot younger, you only had like tier 3 mods, and then eventually they came out with tier 4 mods and then tier 5 mods. But eventually it just got to the point where you never used anything but tier 5 and 6 mods because the tier 4s and 3s couldn't roll as high stats, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. So it just became obsolete. So I'm glad that they got rid of that. Well, by the looks of it, yeah.
In this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, by the sounds of that, that's probably a wise decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
It's very confusing.
It is. It is. It sounds like this is it's still got many layers and elements to it, but not as intrinsic as it is in Star Wars Galaxy of Hero by the sounds of it.
Yeah, and that is a good thing. There's a lot of useless things in Star Wars, like the fact, like, for example, secondary stats in Lord of the Rings, they can only be percent values instead, but the exception is speed, that is flat value.
Yeah.
In Star Wars, you can roll both flat and percent, and you pretty much never want the flats because characters are so power crept and stats, gear tier levels and all that.
Yep. Yeah.
So yeah.
Percent will scale.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, speed, yeah, I can understand.
Yeah. 5% speed. Oh, no.
Yeah. So they do mention that glyphs have gear tier requirements. I believe they mentioned level 25 you can unlock glyphs, which is fine. I mean,
yeah,
you don't really need glyphs at early levels, but if you want a glyph at, say, for instance, level 2, it will require tier 2. Level 3 will require gear tier 3 and so on.
Yeah.
Which also, I guess, kind of makes sense as well.
I believe they said that, like, you can still use it. Where did they say it? It's like it scales the stats down or something.
So I think this is it. If a character's gear tier is lower than the requirement, that character can still equip it, but the primary stat on the glyph will be clamped to the equivalent of the highest glyph level for which that character satisfies the gear tier requirement.
Right. Secondary stats aren't affected by gear tier. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, secondary stats, like as we mentioned, percentage increases. So, I think that's reasonable, which means if you want level 10 glyphs, you need a gear tier 10 character.
Yeah. And to be honest, from the sounds of it, it sounds like they've put themselves in a position where they can also raise
gear levels and
yeah, essentially.
And glyph levels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, like how they've done that. I need to see it.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people are just waiting with bated breath and seeing how this plays out. The big thing for me, so the gold, I'm fine. I can live with that. We just need to see how much it's going to cost. Big thing for me is the energy. Yeah. So MSF had particular campaigns and particular energy for their mod glyph isolate system. Star Wars Galaxy of Hero, from my understanding, also did the same. It had a particular campaign for mods and its own individual campaign energy. Am I right?
Yes, and it also had its own weekly challenges.
Right. So in here, they are using normal and hard nodes in the light and shadow campaigns. Now, this to me is an issue because you're using a single energy source, so your campaign energy, and then you've got to pick and choose. Am I going to farm this character? Am I going to farm for that gear piece? Or am I now also going to farm for this glyph item?
Yeah.
It was already a bit of a juggle between character shards and gear nodes, right? Now we've got a third element. Am I also going to pick and choose between whether I need to throw in glyphs into the mix?
Yeah, exactly. I'm pretty sure it's very, like, most people are in agreement that it's yikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I'm curious to see. I wouldn't think it would be too bad if they put like 2 types of glyphs on each node or something like that instead of just one.
Well, in the example that they gave,
it's just
it did say imagery not final and not a representation. It just showed one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see if there's more than one. I have a feeling probably not.
Probably not. Yeah.
Like I have the feeling that they want to slow release this, and that's why it's in existing campaign nodes and stuff like that, because that would kind of slow the growth of glyphs in a way, rather than having them on their own nodes and own energy.
Yeah. It just makes sense from their point of view, because like if you put it on normal energy, it means it incentivizes people to buy more gems, and it incentivizes people to buy glyph offers.
Right.
So yeah, it's just a win-win for them. Kind of a lose-lose for us.
Yeah, I've always said, as annoying as it is, like obviously with a new system, with a new game mode or anything like that, you want it to be enjoyable, and that's fine. But as far as kind of community perception management goes, I've always said it's better for a company if they don't know where the kind of optimal middle ground is. It's better to go harsh. It's better to go hard, very restrictive, and then loosen the grip, and then go, hey, we've looked at it and we've gone, okay, we're a bit too harsh. We'll allow this and stuff like that. And then players are like, awesome, Whereas if they went the other way and provided a new system that was very easy to obtain and stuff like that, and everyone was like maxing out their glyphs, and then they turn around and go, hey guys,
this is too easy.
We made this a bit too easy, so we're just going to tighten it up on you. God, players, gamers do not love things being taken away from them,
It's my toys.
Call it entitlement, call it whatever you want, but no one reacts positively when you take things away from them. So I don't mind I don't mind that they've come in very restrictive and very harsh with the hope that maybe after a while they'll review it and go, okay, we'll put these glyphs on their own campaign node or something like that, time will tell. But they do mention something. So there's a limit to how many glyphs a player can carry in their inventory systems. I'm not sure if that's the same as Star Wars.
It is.
When you get excess of a particular glyph, it gets sold for gold.
Yes. So in Star Wars, I don't remember if they said what the cap will be, but in Star Wars, I believe it was 500, which sounds like a lot, but it's not at all. Considering like 6 glyphs for one character, it adds up very quickly.
Wow.
So it's definitely. I understand why people don't like it, like mods and stuff like that in Star Wars, because it is just a very repetitive and kind of you just got to grind through it. But that's kind of what I like about it, in that the fact if you dedicate time to it, it kind of just averages out. And in some cases, you get lucky and you're able to actually punch up higher. And so free-to-play accounts can actually punch up to the whales if you're lucky. That's why I like it, but I also see the argument of it is just very like repetitive, tedious grind.
I mean, it's great for people that have a lot of time on their hands and kind of sit there and min-maxing, I guess. It's a big min-max tool, right? Players that love to min-max, this is the system for them.
Exactly.
So be interesting. Now they also mentioned you can set favorite sets on a per character basis to help manage the glyphs. So you can at the top of the character, it'll show like your favorite sets or something like that. So I'm not sure if that's something from Star Wars, but
it's kind of, so in Star Wars, you know how in like MSF you've got like squad loadouts. Basically, you have that for mods in Star Wars.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, it's a good early quality of life, I guess. Again, especially if you're min-maxing and you got different sets for different occasions and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, so in Star Wars, what I used to do is just have my kind of default PvP set, which I use for most things. And then I made a set for raids because I needed particular characters to be faster than others. Like Skull Crusher, for example. Now that we can actually make our characters faster than Skull Crusher, you're going to kind of want to swap some mods around for that, particularly for that.
That's where my head went into, because we've only got Arena and Raid to kind of go by, but even with Raid, with the 4 chapters, they kind of all work differently. Maybe chapter 2 and 4, you could probably say are pretty similar, but in the other 3 at least are kind of different in the way they work. I could see myself, for instance, having 3 different sets potentially. Like you mentioned Skull Crusher, but also in chapter 3, maybe I go with a speed set just to get those extra turns.
Exactly.
Stuff like that, or even the major set that cleanses, for instance, when you drop below 50% from memory. That's
going to be so good for chapter 3. It might make the chapter bearable. I don't understand how you're like, this is a good chapter. I don't get that.
It seems to be very polar. Like I enjoy chapter 3 over chapter 2. It's a different way of thinking, but as long as I can juggle the stacks of mark and capture, I don't mind it. Like I know what I'm getting. Like chapter 2 is.
I do agree with you. When I can juggle the stacks, it's fine. But it's the fact that most of the time you can't, and it's just like by the time my Eladin takes a turn, he's just dead. He's just gone. It's like, well, what's the point?
I don't know. Maybe that's a skill issue.
Pain.
We spoke about some of that major set that obviously cleanses. Do you see like particular combinations between a major and a minor, or you reckon going with 3 minors is the play? I mean, it's kind of interesting because just quickly, like for instance, Bloodlust, 30% turn meter when you kill an enemy. So they mentioned that set bonuses for minors do stack, right? Yes. So you can have up to 3 bloodlust stats. You can get 90% turn meter when you kill someone. You kill someone, you're pretty much going again.
Yeah. It's so insane. Imagine that on like Legolas with his second special, because when he kills someone with that, he gets 100% turn meter anyway. So it'd be like 190%. That's literally 2 turns.
I'm wondering whether this works similar to Star Wars, where it goes over cap.
I hope so.
Or it's similar to MSF, where it gets capped at 100%.
I hope not. It's so much more fun where you could just steamroll a team like that.
So I'm wondering, like, maybe it doesn't apply to Legolas. Like, if he gets 90%, once he gets that next turn, it doesn't go over cap.
I am curious about that. Actually, I'm going to send that to. I'm going to make that a question for you tomorrow.
Ask a question. Yes. Ask a question. Speaking of, although it'll be too late for the listeners.
Yes.
Myself, a couple of the prominent community content creators, Swag and Teacher, along with a few of the kind of profile community members from various high-profile guilds or guild clusters are participating in a Q&A session with CG this upcoming Tuesday. So we'll get a chance to kind of, I've gathered questions within our cluster. I know Swags had his own kind of forum where he's got questions from his fan base as well. So we're all coming together, collating those questions and putting them forward to CG, and we'll have an opportunity to sit with them, go through the questions, any concerns, issues that the community that we've heard from the various community bases that we've all got connections with. And I think we'll also get the opportunity to do follow-up questions and stuff like that. So it's a good opportunity for, I guess, that a select group from the community to kind of be spokespeople and kind of before they implement it, at least get an opportunity, whether they listen to it or not. It's another matter because they may be too far gone. But maybe in certain instances they could go, oh yeah, you're right. We'll
that's the thing.
We'll look at that before we implement it.
Yeah. Like, how far in development are they for the Glyphs to, if they were going to take on board feedback, how quick would they be able to implement it, if that makes sense?
Yeah. And that's why I say, you know, it's going to be case by case, I think.
Sure.
As you mentioned, he mentioned we're probably about a month away, right? So that month is probably for any last minute changes. If we come back and it's something substantial that requires a redesign of the whole Glyph system, not going to happen. Not going to happen. But if it's something like we come back and go, hey, 90% turn meter on Bloodlust, is that an issue? Maybe they go, okay, and they go back to it and they go, okay, change it to 15% turn meter.
No.
As an example, I am staying quiet on that front. I will not bring up the potential turn meter spamming. Although you're bringing up a question in regards whether it's going to overcap. Maybe that might flag it. But anyway.
Yes. I 100% intend to put that in the Q&A section of our Discord. You just be like, this question's not important. We don't need to worry about that. It's just from that Minzy guy.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they take out of the Q&A session. So yeah, back to what we were kind of looking at. Some of the minor sets, like Bloodlust, like as I mentioned, it's quite interesting whether you just go with 3 Bloodlusts in certain instances.
Yeah. Well, like as you were saying, imagine that on Black Beast, where its drain kills multiple people with it. It's like, 60% turn meter if it kills 2 people?
Yeah. Out of the major ones, they're all quite good, but Lembas is one that I went, ooh, on certain characters, I like playing with Haradrim, for instance. I sit there for Tebeb's turn going, come on, I need that heal, or come on, I need that SB2. Yeah. And she might be one where gaining that stamina on the start of a wave could be useful.
Yeah, for sure. I am very curious to see how Withering plays out actually, Withering got a lot of questions, which I was surprised about because it's quite clear to me. But Withering on Isengard and like Haradrim, that's going to be a big damage boost.
It is. I was hoping for a focus boost.
Yeah.
Isengard, this is Isengard. Haradrim, I would still use Withering in general, just because they do inflict a lot of banes. Same with goblins, Mordor as well.
Yeah.
But Haradrim, if they had a focus one, I would take that over Withering anytime, just because they need the focus boost, because if the Bane doesn't land, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, exactly. That's how it is in Galaxy of Heroes, where potency, which is focus in Star Wars, if you put 2 potency, like if you get the 2 set for potency, you gain like I think 15% potency.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I would have.
And that's just not a thing anymore.
And I know you can gain focus with primary and secondary stats, so maybe that might help them. But would have loved to see some sort of a focus gain from either a major or a minor set. The last stand we mentioned, where if they fall below 25%, they gain 100% turn meter, but they also dispel 3 banes. So that might be useful on some of the chapters. Chapter 4, for instance.
Yeah.
Because in chapter 4, I wonder whether that counts as the point score, because you gain points for cleansing.
True. I'd imagine so. Yeah. Yeah.
That's like three banes per person.
I think that one in particular is going to be great for chapter 3. Like that on Eladon is going to be so good.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing, just stacking resistance stats on Eladon for chapter 3. Oh, it's going to be so good.
Well, they don't have a resistance stack, but they do have a shield wall with one of the minor things where when they have taunt or provoke, they take 3% less damage.
Yeah, I meant the secondary stats.
Yeah. Like vitality. Like in my first, without we obviously haven't used any of these. But at first glance, I think vitality is probably the weakest of the 4 major sets.
Yeah.
Like the 3 stacks of regen, it's fine, but I think you gain more with any of the others.
So I think I see that, and I think Rivendell, because the more buffs they have, the more damage they do.
That's true. And
Elrond can extend them.
Well, I mean, vitality in arena defense on Rivendell. Oh God, why did I put that out there?
Yeah, it's a bit like that.
Yeah. I think it's going to be case by case, and it's not just going to be team by team. It's going to be character by character in terms of what set combination is going to be ideal for them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, there's there's not that many major sets, which just leads me to believe, especially how they're designed, that they're going to implement more in the future.
Yeah, I mean, they could easily come out with more symbols and each with their own set bonuses.
Yeah. Yes, it's very exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I was just having a quick look, but yeah, I was just wondering what those numbers were on the on that diagram that they have with Arwen's blade. I believe that's the glyph level.
Yeah, that's the level of glyph.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
I don't know what the yellow...
The return.
Yeah. Maybe an undo button or...
Yeah, I was just, that's what I was kind of looking at just then, just kind of going, what are those? Because I mean, the numbers, okay, that makes sense, but that some sort of swap symbol, I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But it's only on that one, so that's what's... Yeah.
I mean, hey, Q&A.
yeah, true.
But that brings up another thing. It's from the looks of it, it kind of seems like they're implementing relics and glyphs from Galaxy of Heroes into the same thing in Lord of the Rings. So relics in Galaxy of Heroes is essentially glorified gear tiers. Once you get to gear 13, I believe, gear 13 or 14, you can relic a character, and yeah, it's essentially just more gear tiers, but just different. But the relics in Galaxy of Heroes, each character has its own relic, which is how it is in Lord of the Rings.
You mean like the Arwen's blade and stuff like that?
So like Kylo Ren, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, he has Vader's mask, I believe, like the destroyed Vader's mask and stuff like that. Yeah, so in this, it's same thing of like they're using unique things to each character, but in a different way. So as I said, Galaxy of Heroes, it's just its own gear tiers essentially. But in this, it seems to be implemented with mods as well. So I'm curious to see if, one, it makes me think that relics just aren't going to be a thing in this, and that they're going to copy the MSF model of just more gear tiers, essentially.
Probably. I mean, I think those weapons or instruments or whatever are just unique for that particular character.
Yeah.
It's not like you can then go, you can find some other thing for Arwen and switch out that blade or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's just symbolic kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's how it is in Galaxy of Heroes. Like the relic it's only for that character.
Yeah. But could there be more than one relic for a character? Is my question.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, if they do kind of go with the Galaxy of Heroes model, are they going to implement it? Are they going to basically make relics part of the mod system in this as well in some weird way, or is it just not going to be a thing? Is it going to be a different thing entirely, or like, yeah?
I don't know Star Wars, so I can't say, but I was curious in terms of, and this has, been a curiosity since the start, even beta, because they've got weapon types as a particular tag within the game. You've got single hand, double hand,
spear, sword.
Yeah. I was imagining that glyphs was the reason those tags were in the game. Looking at this system, it doesn't look like they will be utilizing those tags in the Glyph system. So I don't know. Maybe there is a relic type system coming in, and there's particular relics.
Yeah.
And you can only obtain particular relics for a character based on their weapon type. So if it's someone that uses axe, you can only use the axe type relics for that character.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's just gonna I feel like it would be such just a waste. Maybe not a waste. I don't know if that's the right word, but like it'd be weird if they made all that just for the large to like small characters, that thing. Like how the large characters do
so
more
at the moment, like, yeah, you're right. The only spot that the weapon types come into play is against large characters.
Yeah. So I feel like they could have just made that with wording if it was going to be just for that.
Yeah, that's right. I don't believe that's the only reason that they have implemented weapon types. And it's not like we're talking purely single hand versus double hand or dual, there's additional tags on top of that, right?
Yeah, there's like staff. I believe there's bow as well. Yeah,
you got one-handed sword, you got one-handed, two-handed swords, but then you got spears. Where is it? I believe. Let me just quickly look at it. So you got two-handed heavies. You got staff. You got bow. Gandalf's a staff. Gimli's a one-handed heavy. So I believe the axes they call heavies, but I mean, whereas the large characters, it's just one hand versus two hand, but then you've got other stuff on top of that. Dagger.
Yeah.
You got a dagger as well, looking at the list. So it's split way more than what's on the whole large character requirements. So there's something else,
Yeah, for sure. Like it's just, it definitely seems like it's going to be its own type of additional progression system in the future.
Yeah.
It's just like, what could it be, I guess?
Yeah. They've got time. Like they don't really. It's not even a year into the game, so it leaves them with something they can work on for the future, I guess. But speaking of the,
I was about to say.
Go on.
The road ahead. What do you expect to come out of that? What do you want to come out of that?
Well, I think on the tip of everyone's tongue is multi-squad PvP. Obviously, now that we've got Glyphs announcement and a bit more information on Glyphs, but then other game modes as well. Like I think next year they need to start ramping up in terms of game mode. So we've got raids, obviously, we've got multi-squad PvP, maybe Guild War type game mode. Along with other progression systems, maybe something like relics or something like that. Just, I guess, what their plan for 2024 is in terms of I'm not too fussed about knowing what characters are going to come out because it's a hero collector. We're just conditioned to collect them. That's not really. When I look at road aheads, I care less about what they're planning in terms of character releases, but more in terms of quality of life, new game modes, new systems, that kind of stuff. That's what I care about for road aheads.
Yeah, for sure.
Quality of life is a big one now that I mention it. Stuff like I'm hoping they're looking into the raid. We spoke about it last week with Swag, where you could tell their focus has been just getting those 4 chapters out, but now they've got time. So now they can hopefully go back and look at the 4 chapters. They've looked at chapter 1, thankfully, and tweaked that. But raid in general, not just how the chapters are, like obviously your annoyance with chapter 3, but even the raid management side of things, maybe they can make tweaks there, quality of life for how leaders and officers can manage their guild in terms of raid leaderboards and stuff like that.
Yeah. In Star Wars, there's I don't believe you can actually see everybody's individual scores with teams, but you can see everyone's total score. Yeah, so I would love to see a total score and perhaps a attempt counter or like submission counter.
One quick fix for that, just put a sort option at the top and allow us to sort by player. If I can sort by Minzy, I can see whether you've done 5 attacks or not, because it's sorted by players. I can just scroll down to Minzy and go, hey, this guy's only done 2 attacks. What the fuck is he doing? You know?
Yes.
But that's also like a personal thing. Like sometimes I just want to see what my attacks are, and I don't want to scroll through 35 other players just to get to my 5 attempts that I can just quickly look at. So it's for everyone's benefit, I think, in that sense. And then a player total and a chapter total as well, because
chapter total, yes.
You don't know what the chapter's total is because it's an ongoing cumulative total.
Yes, and perhaps that Minzy guy might not make mistakes in the future then.
Don't want to name any names, but
have to repost the fucking screenshot like 3 or 4 times. Like, there's another one. There's another one. There's another one. It's like playing whack-a-mole.
Or just give us an API and just let us automate it all.
Yes, that's the dream.
I guess we just quickly go into account updates before we wrap this episode up. I unlocked Black Beast at 5-star, and I've taken him up to gear tier 8, as I mentioned earlier. Still need to level up his abilities, but my focus has purely been between either him and the dwarves. I'm building the dwarves up. I've kind of parked RTR. They're at a stage where I'm getting comfortable scores with them. I can obviously do better in chapter 2 with them if I can get their damage up, but I think the investment to reward in on that chapter with them, it's not as easy as the elves are. So I don't see people hitting 900 pretty frequently with them, and even the people that do, I've seen drop down to 500 on the very next raid. So
yeah, exactly.
I still will do them in saying that, and I still will do Haradrim, but I'm just looking at all the data out there. I'm liking the dwarves. I think they're a pretty strong outfit.
Yeah.
So that's my focus at the moment. What about you?
I agree with RTR. I've been wanting to take them up pretty much to max just so I can try to get like that 900k in or close to in chapter 2. But like I pretty much only got, I think, like 3 more abilities to go, 3 or 4, but it's just like I would have hoped to see more improvement than what I have, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I should just leave them and just like go on with it or just finish it. I feel like I should just finish it because like I'm at the end anyway.
Rohan's a team I wish I did.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing next, Rohan. For sure. they score so high so consistently as well. Legolas I'll be taking up. Going into Gear Tier 8, I just need to chuck his abilities on and shards, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my next projects. And then Haradrim and Dwarves after that. I'm leaving Dwarves for last because I haven't farmed shards for them at all. So I figured may as well just do my other teams and gather the shards.
Yeah. I mean, that's like me and Rowan. Like, I'm slowly building them, but I still don't believe in going wide. I'm obviously wider than a lot of other players, but in general, it's a narrow focus. Like, I went Rivendell hard. Once I finished them, I moved on to Haradrim. Yeah. I didn't finish Haradrim, but then I moved on to RTR. I think Dwarves I probably will fully finish, unlike Haradrim and RTR. The only reason I pivoted from both is because I saw value in other teams. And then maybe I might not do Rohan. Maybe they release a decent team, a new team that I don't need to build Rohan and do it that way. But I think in general, it's best for players to just focus one team at a time and just get long-term 5 teams that they can use on the raids.
Yeah.
Even with Glyphs, I would. My early opinion is to do Glyphs for one team first and then move on to another team. Or do Glyphs for key characters on a team and then move on to another team.
See, that's tricky. That's the whole thing with mods is technically you can always get better mods for characters. So it's more of I'm happy with where my characters are now. I'll go to the next team kind of thing.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm going to try and get at least speed on everyone first and then focus on teams.
Yeah. I mean, speed's a very safe bet, right?
Yeah. Well, when I say everyone, I mean my core 5.
Yeah.
And then, start focusing in more on like stats and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Speed, Glyphs are going to be like such a just long-term project and kind of, you can always improve them. So,
yeah.
That's you kind of got to be flexible with that in a way.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess for our next episode, I'd have done the Q&A session, so I'll be able to talk about what we discussed and what we learnt from that Q&A session with the developers. We're not able to record that session, and that's mostly to do with privacy concerns with the developers themselves, and that's fine. I mean, Nick Reinhardt's someone that's comfortable being recorded, and he was able to do that with Torna, but there's a lot of developers out there that want to stay private, and I respect that. And I'd rather be able to have the opportunity to speak with the right developers than speak to a developer just because they're the only ones that were willing to be recorded. So I'm fine with it not being a recorded session, but we have been given the all clear that we can at least speak about it. So for our next episode, that will be one of the topics that we'll be covering is what I got out of the Q&A session.
Yeah.
And I guess...
I was going to say, my understanding was like you can't record it, but it's going to be recorded in general.
No, it's not being recorded. Oh, they may record it on their end, but they're not publishing it.
Right. Okay. That's interesting. Okay. I was going to say, I thought it would be like Nick Reinhardt where like that was recorded.
Only because he was comfortable being recorded. A lot of the developers don't like the public limelight, and that's fine.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, but we can openly talk about whatever was discussed in that session. So that'll be one of the topics for our next podcast.
I'm going to be hounding you that morning.
Oh, yeah. so 4
a.m. Just wake up straight to the computer.
Minzy wants to be a fly on the wall. Let me in.
Yes.
Let me in. Oh man. Other than that, maybe we might get the other Dol Guldur, but we'll wait and see. I think there'll be a lot to discuss with the Q&A session itself.
Yes, I can see the Charu kit's going to come out right after we finish this.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's always the case.
That's always the case. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up there. I hope you guys enjoyed that rundown for the glyphs that we had. Obviously, with Minzy's take on his knowledge of Star Wars Galaxy of Hero.
My terrible explanations.
I mean, it helped me because I never played Star Wars. And this is obviously a fresh new system for me. So having that understanding of how they implemented and did it in Star Wars was useful for me. So I'm hoping that was the same for people listening in. Otherwise, we'll catch you guys next time.